Hey everyone, I'm Katie McGregor Bennett, your host of AV Trade Talk. We have a special episode today. This is another episode in the series Mastering Connectivity in collaboration with Chords. We have an exceptional cast here today. We've got Michael and Haley Daly from Wired by MJD in Australia. We've got Greg from Chords Australia. And joining me today for the first time is Lisa Montgomery, who's on Team KMB. But you guys all, I'm sure you have all met and remembered Lisa. She's been here for quite some time, former editor of Electronic House and other publications. I'm going to go around the room and let all of you introduce yourselves, if you would, and then we'll kick off and get going on the topic du jour, which is creating a ultimate showroom and what it takes to get it all the way through to a multiple award-winning status. Michael, I'll let you kick off, if you would, and then Haley, follow him in.
Hey, so I'm Michael Daly, Managing Director of Wired by MJD. Been doing this for about 23 years now, and we're systems integrators and electricians in Melbourne.
Hi, I'm Dr. Haley Daly. I'm General Manager and Lead Systems Integrator at Wired by MJD.
Excellent. And Greg, if you would.
And I'm Greg Parasitides from Chords Australia. So I'm representing Chords as a brand for the show, and welcome you all.
Excellent. Lisa.
And I'm Lisa Montgomery. I work with Katie at KMB Communications, and I had the pleasure of speaking with Michael and Haley a while back about their showroom, and it's amazing. You're going to learn a lot from them today.
Absolutely. And that's one of the best things about this, because not only do we have the journalist who was behind the scenes building the case study that we all got to learn and better understand the dynamics of what it takes to present this project by MJD, but also too is from a third party perspective is what are the types of things that are of interest to an audience when we're talking about a home theater of this level, but also just a room that can be enjoyed by all. And I'll tell you, that's just kind of a sneak peek, because that's one of the things about this that I love about the way that you guys designed this project was its versatility and its usability by more than just a few in the family or close friends. So anyways, that's a little bit of foreshadowing. Let's not get into that point. Let's back up here a little bit. Michael, Haley, if you would, you guys as a husband and wife, business owner team, there's obviously a distinct relationship and a maintenance of that relationship that you guys have to walk. It can be a bit of a tightrope for all of us who are husband and wife teams and small business owners. There's also a certain challenge that creates in not only maintaining the peace at home, but also creating the projects that both of you have your components of the vision ultimately to bring to the world. So I want to have you talk a little bit about the husband and wife nature of your business. And then if you would lead that into how the showroom started to come into view. And then we'll talk a little bit about that stage of the project.
I don't know which one's the start here, but I guess you got to love spending a lot of time together, because we really do talk all the time, spend a lot of time together. We've also got 4 kids, so we're doing the parenting thing as well. And that was a big part of the process of building the showroom. We actually had to incorporate the family into the showroom to make it a functional space for us as a family and as a business. So, I mean, the dynamics are more about communication and talking to each other, being able to separate work from home. It's a big deal. So,
and I think that's really the starting point of where the showroom came from, was trying to maintain that balance of our relationship inside of work and outside of work, and getting a distinct space that I could work outside of the home. So for 10 years previously, I'd been working from home, being a mum and parent at home and a wife at home, and pretty much doing everything at home. So it was really nice to be able to step outside. And that's kind of where this idea initiated from, and it's turned into this showroom and experience center that we are so proud of.
So tell us a little bit, was this the showroom as it sits today and where the theater resides within it? Was this a new build? Did you guys move into the space, or was this an existing space that you started to reimagine?
This space actually started as a radio station. So the local radio station for our area was this shop. We purchased the place and demolished everything internally. So it was just 4 walls and a roof. And we started the whole process from scratch. So in the settlement period, we'd sat down and basically old-fashioned style, I got a pen and paper and just started sketching all the designs of what I was hoping to produce in this space. moving walls and designing the right measurements for each room, just so you got the right amount of space to create the right feeling for that environment.
How close were you guys when you started comparing your notes? How close were you in the vision?
We toed and froed depending on what we were doing. Obviously, there's certain spaces and dimensions you want for things like cinemas. And then trying to do the main area. At one stage, Michael did take out my office, and I was like, no. I need an office, and I need it to be a way that I can do stuff and be messy and have plans and everything all over the place. That can be, hidden from view. So yeah, it was developing. It was still in progress. We were looking at a lot of different things. So, yeah.
So at some point, once the vision started to gel a little bit, where did you stay put on the vision then, or did you, once you started to see as it was coming together, you're like, okay, now here's what's possible, or here's some potential alternatives, or did you kind of lock in at that point and just decide, right, we're gonna go?
I know it was evolving. So we had a very strict and tight budget to start with. We had certain key aspects of integration we wanted to showcase and the way we wanted it to look. But then the passion from my early childhood days came forward and said, I want to do this, which is something I've always wanted to do, and started investing in a bit more technology than we initially set out to display.
Where did the budget come into the conversation? and how did we track along with the budget once we started to see all of the things that we wanted to add?
We stayed on budget for the initial concept really well. And it was as we were adding and developing that scope and how we were going to use it, there was a lot of analysis in, well, if we go down this road, what are the return on investment? What is the opportunities that we get by going forward and doing, that extra or putting that extra money into it? Are we comfortable with that? So a lot of conversation about where we wanted to draw the line and where we could pull back and where we thought it was worth scaling up. And it just kind of evolved. And I think most of the time we were pretty on par because it was a continual conversation all the way through.
What were the main elements that you wanted to incorporate into the experience center and showroom?
It was life. Life was the main element. So we wanted to incorporate what it would feel to walk into somebody's home with all this integration and technology in place in a way that it didn't feel out of place. It sat in the room really nicely. It wasn't overpowering. It wasn't controversial. The cinema can always be controversial because that's where the creative flair comes out. But when it comes to home decor, you don't want to go over the top and have technology overpower the room unless that is the key feature. So we're very sensitive about the design and the styling of the place to make it feel like you'd actually walked into a home. So that was critical, that the place felt comfortable and you'd rather sit in here than your own house. It's got that really homely environment.
So it's relatable to your clientele.
Yeah, exactly. They could envisage this technology in their own home, sitting there really nicely on the wall or hidden away in a cabinet that you can't see. There's photography on the walls. There's mementos. There's plants. There's all sorts of things that just bring life together. Even down to the sheer curtains that softens the space and the lounge things. Yeah.
Yeah, I think everything was really thought about in great detail. So you obviously, being a showroom, you want to show a variety of different technologies and switches, but you don't want it to look mismatched or, just with a whole bunch of switches on the wall. So we had to place our switches very carefully, that in each space it felt fitting and it still flowed like a continual home, yet there's lots of different styles so people can see just some of the variations that are available. Obviously, you can't put everything in, but doing that was actually a real challenge. How do you put in as many switches and as many different features without it looking like you've just got a tech center or a cockpit of an airplane with so many buttons and switches, and still make it flow all together. So there were some real challenges on that front, even down to the smell of the room and what soap that we would use in the bathroom, or the pendant. That there's one pendant in the whole showroom. What pendant are we going to use? It needs to be timely, classy, it needs to be fitting, it needs to be, so many things. So every piece that has been put in this showroom has been curated specifically for a reason and to bring everything together as a homely place.
Love it. I love it. And especially the attention to the interior design aspect of it as well. And for those of you who follow AV Trade Talk outside of these collaborative episodes with Quartz, you know that that's a very, for me personally and professionally, it's a big part of what I do and where I spend a lot of my time is the aesthetic as well as the performance. And I think those stories where we strike a distinct balance between those two, at least for me, are were some of the most exciting opportunities for sharing what our industry does and what really makes the work that we do so special. And I was at a conference recently, and there was a presenter who said that 71% of most of the consumers across the world expect some level of customization and personalization within their home. And that's as true for a new, younger audience or a younger buyer as it is for someone who's older and more established. When I bring that back into perspective and look at it from an industry view, like that's where we start to get really excited, because home theaters or media rooms, spaces like this, and we'll have you guys talk about the uniqueness of it here in a second, but it really is a room that, while it takes a dedication to the amount of space to make that room happen, it's also a dedication to having a room in the home where you can get away, not only you, but your children, your friends, and their friends. And for parents, I think this is something Lisa and I were talking about this earlier this week, is these rooms become the hottest space on the block. And as a parent, it's really nice to know where your kids want to be at your home and bring their friends over, as opposed to losing visibility into what they're doing in their spare time. So the fact that you guys designed this from a parent perspective as well was very intriguing to me. So there's the big long-winded setup, but if you would talk a little bit now about how the room ultimately, how you designed it, the products that went into it, the look and feel. I'll pause and say quickly for the audience, we're giving you a lot of narrative. The visuals for all of this are online on a few websites. We'll give you the URLs again at the end, but just in case you want to take a peek now, go to wiredbymjd.com.au. That's for Wired by MJD's website. The case study sits on Chord's website, which is Chords with a Z, KORDZ.com, and look for case studies, and you'll see it right there in the hero position where it absolutely should be. All right, guys. So now we've kind of given the lead up to where the vision and where some of the challenges came in. Let's get into the performance nitty gritty here. Start talking about products, what you've got in the room. And I think maybe kick us off with dimensions and some of the design aspects that went into getting the acoustics right and prepping the room for its ultimate performance.
One question that just popped into my mind was like, don't you guys call it Aladdin's Cave?
Yeah, we do.
I'm
okay.
really curious to learn how you came up with that name.
Okay. Well, where we are is Woorollalek. It's a little country town. And the group of shops is a bit rough and ragged looking. So it's a bit of a hidden gem. You can't tell what's inside here. And the cinema, even though you come into the front of the showroom, the cinema's hidden. It's down a hall. So you don't really know it's there until you open that door and walk in, and the wows we get as all the lights sort of segment on in stages, and then all the lights ramp up and they get to see all the colors and the feel of the room, and you close the door and it's quiet and it's just another planet. But the one thing that sort of really brought Aladdin's Cave into it was we got Diamond Series Bowers and Wilkins speakers, which was a huge thing for us. And being a Diamond Series, I decided in my mind, it's the diamond in the rough. And that is a line out of Aladdin. The diamond in the rough is Aladdin. So it's a bit of a story behind the name, but Aladdin's Cave did come all the way from that.
I see. Okay.
I
Yeah,
love it.
it's kind of magical, you know. That's kind of the feeling I got from it, looking at the photos and hearing you describe it, and you know, all the intricacies that went into it. You have a lot of different brands in there besides the Bowers and Wilkins speakers. What else? What kind of
So
your leading brands there?
yeah, so speakers wise, it's Bowers and Wilkins. There's no other speakers in the actual cinema, but there's a 2-channel and a Dolby Atmos cinema, and then there's Macintosh, Marantz. We've got Audio Quest cabling for the 2-channel, and it's all cords for the cinema. So Horses for Courses, the 2-channel was more suitable to use the Audio Quest, and with the cinema, it made perfect sense to use the cords. That was the best product of choice. And then, yeah, I guess we've got acoustics, we've got MB lighting, Elan,
Manhattan seating.
yeah,
What about the
Manhattan.
chair you're sitting on?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's Manhattan. So
Manhattan.
that's it. That's the Manhattan cinema range.
Okay.
It is a custom couch too. It's not something that you just buy and yeah. Sorry, I'm going
Yeah.
too deep already.
No, you're not. No, are you kidding? The geeky stuff is the good stuff. In fact, you missed two very critical components, which are projector and screen, I take it, or flat panel, which you got.
I'm looking at the screen and then say it when the couch came up. But yeah, we've got a JVC projector and Screen Technics screen. So there's a micro per screen at the front.
Beautiful.
We're actually also running a Mad VR processor in here as well. So there's a Bluestream Matrix, a Mad VR processor, JVC projector, and Screen Technics screen. So there's quite a bit of video in the room as well. In fact, the video for the cinema is actually more expensive than the audio component.
Okay.
So it just goes to show, where the budget.
What sort of content do you demo typically?
Generally, we're looking for solid media. So I actually run solid media in the showroom. 4K discs with Dolby Atmos is what we're really trying to showcase. However, we have watched plain old DVDs in here, and they're still sensational. So the Mad VR, you can actually lens stretch the image and have a CinemaScope picture on an old DVD. The kids wanted to watch Mulan the other day. So we managed to
Great
watch
movie.
DVD. Yeah. And it looked great in lens stretch in full CinemaScope and 5.1. It was fantastic. The kids loved it.
Are there any clips that seem to that you go to time and again to get the point across, the quality of the cinema?
The one that sort of we stuck with from the beginning is Ready Player One. There's a car race scene in the early stages of the film, and the Dolby Atmos is incredible in that scene. It really tests your sound system and your sound stage to make sure that you're getting the Dolby Atmos effects. There's a King Kong at one stage hanging off an Empire State Building, and there's a little plane buzzing around him, and you can actually hear the plane buzzing on the ceiling. Then he jumps onto the road and crushes the road. So all of a sudden you're hit with all this bass, and it's just so unbelievable.
I really love demoing that and watching the reactions of people as they get so engrossed in the movie. So, it's only a demo part, but they just lose themselves in the surround and the imagery and the sound. It is a very immersive space. And then when I hit stop, it's kind of like, oh, okay, I'm back. And I think that's a real great feeling to be able to create a space that people just lose themselves in.
And I think from a value perspective, again, it's a dedication of one room in the home that is going to serve a particular need. But when you start to look at the various aspects of value that room can bring, for instance, I think there's no better room in the house to read a book. For instance, if you've sat in a dedicated theater and you've actually had the door closed for you so that you actually feel the way that the room changes when that door shuts behind you, it's a suspension of reality, and so it really allows you to get into the dynamic of whatever that content is. Maybe it's just great music, on great headphones. Maybe it's great music concert footage on the screen. Maybe it's yoga, peace and quiet of yoga. Maybe it's that glorious, that meditation that people always talk about. And we're like, no, there's no time in the day for that because I can't possibly clear my head. This is the room to do that and really achieve that. So while we always talk from an industry perspective of the performance of a home theater, I think there's these additional value adds that really, when you start to talk about them, it's kind of hand on heart. These are the things that are really important to us, is not just entertainment too, but just the sanctity of a space like this. So that's my long run in. Greg, I'm going to pull you in because, as Michael was talking about the connectivity aspect of the room, he made a point to clarify the difference between the 2-channel performance and the cinema performance a bit. So there was quite a bit within the chords range that went into the cinema design and delivery of that performance. Can you kind of run us through a bit on the products that were used and how they lended to the final the performance side of it as well?
Well, I guess one of the first things that was critical to the whole installation was for Michael to have a reliable connectivity for the projector, and that was getting them the new PRS4 8K cable that we've got, certified 8K cable, and then from that there was the speaker cabling plus the new SlimCat Cat6A data cabling that is run throughout the whole showroom. There was also, I believe, some control cable, some KNX control cable that was implemented there, and some. And then we also had the data rack. We also included our new patch panel and Keystone termination. I think I covered most of the products. Oh, not to mention our high quality speaker cable running to all these speakers in the room.
Excellent. Michael, how do you do? Did he check all the boxes here on the equipment list?
Take a while, but he got there.
And Michael, I think you had told me how many kilometers of wire is in this, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, there's about 3 kilometers of cabling in this place. It's insane. So, a lot of containers. There's cable tray. It's only a small space. We're only talking about 87 square meters, but we're literally squeezing an entire home of technology into this small space. So some of our large architectural projects have the same amount of technology in them, but we've squeezed it into such a small space and made it how do I explain it? We've made it
highly functional.
Highly functional, exactly. That's what I'm looking for. It's kind of like your caravan. You've got a small space and you need everything to be in that one spot.
So it's really dense. The cabling is really dense. So I guess that would, the SlimCat especially boded well for an installation of this sort, where you've just got a lot going on behind the walls.
Yeah, it's so much easier to manage. And when you're building a rack, space is really important. The more cable, the more space you take up in it, the heat can't escape. Or you might not be able to move the rack in order to get behind it or reach the back of the equipment. So having a smaller cable footprint means that I can get my hands in there and still work on the rack quite efficiently without having to pull everything out and then do it. So it makes life a lot easier.
And that rack, you guys, you didn't hide it away, correct? It's out where people can see it and observe all the.
Yeah, part of our tour is to actually wheel it out and show everyone the back of the rack and how it's all spaced and designed. It's really important that the entire process from the finished product to showing the nitty-gritty behind the walls, we're trying to show every aspect because it shows the quality of our workmanship and where we take attention to detail. It's really important that people get to see, touch, and feel everything that we do and understand the whole process.
What are the reactions what do people say when they see all the cabling and the terminations and the rack? What's their feedback?
I've had people stand there and just stare at it like they're lost.
Yeah.
Like a piece of art, really, and yeah.
We've had people in the industry come and look at it that may have moved on into other aspects of the industry, and they want to come back for things like that. this is the stuff that I really would love to do, but that's not the opportunity I got when I was working in the industry, so I left it. But then they want to get hands on again as soon as they see this work. Even this, like the cinema, Haley was saying, the reactions. I've had people lean forward and just, wow, what just happened? Every little detail in here is supposed to excite, and for somebody who understands it as well in the industry, it's great to see them also having the same reactions as customers that have never seen this stuff before.
Yeah.
I think it's that level, it's that attention to detail and to the level that you have taken it, and many others in the integration community as well. It's, for the nerd, the inner geeks, and in all of us, it's what happens behind that I think is, quite honestly, where some of the most fascinating elements of the art of integration really come in. But it is an art, and so therefore I think being able to create a space that allows you to show not only the underpinnings of projects, the process of what it takes to deliver the end result, but then what's possible too. And it's not easy to do, because you also, much like staging a home for real estate, you don't want to introduce too much of one style or one personality or one sort of look and feel, because it will be completely unrelatable to the next person that walks in the room. Invariably, the next 4 or 5 people, it's going to be unrelatable to. So when developing the design for a showroom like this, I think, from an industry point of view, we want to, obviously performance is really important to us, but it also is striking that really unique balance of making it something that everybody that walks in and experiences wants, without feeling as though it isn't for them because of some individual element. And Haley, you mentioned just down to the pendant selection, those little details are really, really critical, and it does matter. So compliments and kudos to you guys for continuing to keep that part of the exercise really at the forefront. And it's something that I preach about very often, but the design and the aesthetic is as important as the performance, truly. And it's the more people that get to experience a room like this, where all of those have been carefully thought out, it really does highlight why our industry is so unique, and bodes much better, I believe, for what comes next. We need more people to experience rooms like this is my point. So I want to pause here quickly, because while we've been celebrating this room, we actually haven't given you guys on the listener side the full rundown of what the awards ranking has been on this. So Michael or Haley, whichever one of you guys would like to tell the story of where this room was submitted and the awards that you've won, leading up to ultimately what happened in London.
I'll let Michael take it.
Oh, okay. We're going to handball that one. We recently entered our showroom in the CEDIA Awards for the APAC region, and we ended up winning Best Showroom in the APAC region for CEDIA, along with Best Technician for myself, and Haley won the Best, New Volunteer of the Year. So
sweet. That was a sweet.
We also had other projects in the awards that were finalists for this year as well, which was terrific. So it was nice to have our name up there so much and have our peers cheering along for us at the awards night. It was a fantastic result.
Yeah, it was fun, because over the way that the awards play out for those of you on the listener side, there's kind of a timeline here. So CEDIA Expo, which is CEDIA's the Custom Electronic Design and Installation Association, it's the largest association for our industry. It's global, so there are different regions. So in September, we all convene for CEDIA Expo, and it's here in the US. And there's the CEDIA Awards for the Americas are introduced there, and it's in a ballroom, and it's at the end of the trade show day. And so we all kind of show up in our trade show for the day clothes, and it's lovely, and we enjoy ourselves. And then a few weeks later, the whole party really kicks up again over in London for the APAC and Global Awards, and that's a black tie affair in a fancy building with gorgeous look and feel, and it's a room that I've always wanted to be in. And so it was interesting as we were watching the awards here in the US unfold, and I heard Haley was announced as the new Volunteer of the Year, and you guys weren't even there. It's like, woohoo! Oh, wait. Okay, hold the woohoos. And then we've got a couple of weeks before we can really celebrate. And same thing, because the showroom awards here were for the Americas, and what you guys won for was on the APAC side. So there was also sort of like this delay in the celebration of like, okay, what's happening next? What's happening next? And so when he had to absorb it all through social media as that night unfolded, and it was so neat to see you guys from a business perspective win for the theater, for Michael for Technician of the Year, and then Haley as well for New Volunteer, and the way that you, Haley, really phrased that on LinkedIn, I loved it. And you celebrated it, but then at the end you said, please, raise your hand and volunteer. And so this is the part of the conversation where I'm just going to pause and do a quick industry PSA from your pal Katie, which is we do need more volunteers in the industry. And whether you've been at it for a minute or you've been with us for decades, the range of expertise is really what drives our industry forward. And there's the stories of the individuals that have risen up through the ranks and are doing amazing things are as important to us here on this conversation today as it is to me as well. But from an industry, we need you. And so, help build that momentum and build that excitement, be part of the community that volunteers and help shape what happens next. Okay, back to the topic at hand. Excellence, best practices. Want to talk just for a minute here as you guys were ultimately putting the finishing touches on the showroom, were there any essential best practices that you, again, big on checking boxes, were there any best practices that you wanted to make sure were maintained throughout, and that at the end of the day, you got to celebrate for maintaining that? Anything that, I'm thinking from like an integrator point of view, recommendations that you would make to others.
Yeah, I guess careful planning is a huge thing when it comes to best practices. Planning out your design and your cable runs and your finished product and the end result. It's so important. When we tend to design a project, we try and design for the future as well. So we try and keep in mind that maybe cabling won't be sufficient in the future. So we actually run a lot of conduit through walls and through ceilings so that we can easily pull through additional cabling in the future. Even if a change is made, another display, another speaker has been put in, we can easily adjust without having to destroy the actual integrity of the project, cut plaster and run new wires, which can be done, but obviously you want to do as minimal damage as possible. But also leaving enough headroom in the cabling that you do run is really important. So if there's an option that's better than the cable that you need at the time, start investigating that. Try and think about the future in a bit of headroom in the cable. So we actually have the PRS4 cable in this showroom, which is 8K. We are only actually running 4K. So we have the capacity to run an 8K cinema, but we're only running 4. It runs perfectly well with the 4, but we've got the headroom to go to 8 if we ever wanted to. So there's no issues there. Plus the fact that there's conduits running to every location. So if we had to run a new HDMI in the future, it's just tie it on, pull it through, and off you go again.
Continuity data is another one that we do, besides just having the conduits there. Having just an extra data cable for really key components is really important as well.
Greg,
Yeah.
Greg, I want to pull you in here because there was a couple of things that Michael was commenting on, and particularly that the performance capability range and whether you're tapping into and utilizing 8K now or not, but looking at the future needs and performance of projects is equally important. It's not just the work that you're doing today, but how can you provide that project some longevity? Can you talk a little bit from the Chord's perspective about some of the thought process that goes into that, and where from an innovation perspective the brand has positioned itself in order to be present today but capable for tomorrow?
Chords as a brand is always looking towards the future to help integrators better cater for their customers. We develop products like the SlimCat cable, for argument's sake. We understand that there's things like the advent of Wi-Fi 7 that is on the is actually at our doorstep right now, and Wi-Fi 7 has a requirement of Cat6a. And as we know, and most integrators will know and understand, is that the current Cat6a, the normal Cat6a cables, has quite a significant diameter, and the new Slim Cat6a, being half of the size of a normal Cat6a, is far easier to terminate and to also have those smaller connectors to be able to put into those Wi-Fi access points. So those are some of the little things that Chords will ease and continuously doing for the future. Some of the things are also our data cabling, our speaker cabling, our bulk cabling in general, in most cases here in Australia, are all PVC free. From a sustainability perspective, that helps with Green Star rating in buildings here in Australia, and PVC is more and more widely being minimised in the larger scale projects. And then we're further developing new products, such as our new release of our balanced audio cable that is much easier to manage, a lot thinner in its diameter, and ultimately it allows people like Michael to manage cables in a rack, minimize that amount of cables, improving on bend radiuses as well. Bend radiuses is also a very important aspect of the best practices in cable installations, and we will continue to develop further products as we go.
I'd like to say we just used the new Chords KNX bus cable, and I absolutely love it. So bus cable is usually notorious for being quite stiff and unflexible. The Chords cable is easy to work with, easy to manage. It's much slimmer. It's, a great product and a great innovation. To have that, I pulled out all the other cable and put Chords bus cable in my backpack that I take around as extra cable, because it is so easy to work with. So I think it's things like that they really have not only the technical aspects down pat, but also the usability and the integrators, the integrators aspects and needs are also thought about really well.
I think it's a lot of consumer confidence too, even integrators' confidence in buying a product that the specifications are correct, and there's probably a bit more headroom in them. I've got Chords cables back from almost 20 years ago, and I can still plug them into a 4K device and get a 4K signal out the other end. Now, 4K didn't exist back then, but these cables still push that signal through them. Maybe not the long ones, but the short ones can certainly sustain that, which is quite an impressive feat, because even back in the day, you'd struggle to get a cheap cable to do what was necessary at the time. So being able to pick up an old 20-year-old HDMI, plug it in and get it working is just a testament to the brand.
I've got to admit, we do over-engineer and under-specify our products. And I've heard stories just like what Michael is saying, where customers have asked us whether a cable that they installed in 2010 will handle the current technology. And we say, it wasn't designed for that, but if you test it and it works, then it'll be fine. And we get the feedback to say, we've run the system, we've connected the system up, it works fine. And this is a cable that's been put into an installation, 15 years ago, and it still operates at the current technology. So, we do over-engineer and under-specify our products. And SlimCat is a good example of that too. We, SlimCat Cat6a cable that Michael's run in his theatre is a 10 gig system. So he's looking at scalability of that project there in his showroom. If he needs to update, he's got the bandwidth and the headroom to be able to do what he needs to do in the future.
What I really like about this part of the conversation here is, and for those of you listening in, is we're not just talking about performance of a particular product. While we're also talking about the longevity of the products that you're installing. And when you think of that from a cost perspective, for business owners or those who are responsible for any of the financial aspects of a business, ensuring that you're bringing high quality products into the projects that don't require a lot of attention over the course of their lifetime. That's left less time that you have to invest in callbacks, in rolling trucks, on sending technicians out to the job site. There's this wonderful thing called chasing ghosts that technicians love. I've heard so many stories of how much technicians love chasing ghosts. And that's the art and the practice of trying to find the answer to why something doesn't work. You chase ghosts oftentimes when projects have been value engineered or when the underpinnings, the foundational aspects have been overlooked from a benefit of the added cost perspective. And as for those of you who don't know me personally, I came into this industry as a buyer. So I was kind of attuned to the fact of looking at what things cost versus what they sell for versus what the benefit is to that price point and the relationship of it. Chords is the perfect example of the relationship of what things cost to provide and produce, and then what the value is that they continue to provide long after the technician has gone. Chords is a brand that is dedicated to the longevity of its products, which ensure you're not chasing ghosts. I'm sorry, technicians, but you will have less of an opportunity to chase those ghosts. And I'm saying all of this very jokingly because it's one of those areas for businesses and integration firms in general where you have unknown costs and you cannot figure out where your profits are disappearing. It's in this notion of chasing ghosts and not knowing where things are failing, but having to resolve it in order for your clients to have a system that performs well. So the foundational aspect, these system underpinnings are really, really critical. And so not just going with the cheapest product. This is my long-winded way of getting there. Not just going with the cheapest product or something you can get quickly from Amazon or insert.com here. You really need to pay attention to the suppliers that you're partnering with. And it is a partnership because when things do fail, you need to have that partnership to be able to tap into to resolve it quickly so that your customers aren't left exposed at invariably the worst time. As we're going into the holidays recording this is the worst time for things to fail, and particularly things in the wall. As Michael, as you talked about, the decisions of what goes into the wall and ultimately that wall gets closed. Well, if something goes wrong behind the wall in the middle of a holiday, that's a big problem. So integrators, this is just a different way of looking at how you're building your projects from the ground up. And really these foundational aspects and the underpinnings are really important. And so, while we were celebrating this project and this theater for all that you guys have put into it and for the performance, it's what went into the project that really makes all the difference in the world. So thank you again for joining us today and sharing the story, not only of your exceptional showroom, but also, the road, the path that got you guys here. I'd love if we could just swing around the room one more time and share with everybody on the audience side the URL, the web address for your companies. How do people find, follow, engage with your brand on the web or on social media? And Haley, Michael, I'll let you guys kick off from the MJD side, and then Greg, if you would, kick in from the Chord side.
Yeah, sure. So we're Wired by MJD on Instagram, and we're also got a Wired by MJD channel on YouTube, along with our Wired by MJD page on Facebook, and then our wired.com, wiredbymjd.com.au website, if you'd like to find us there as well.
We're also on LinkedIn. So if you want to find Wired by MJD on LinkedIn, and we do use a hashtag on Instagram, which is the Wired by MJD experience. So yeah, come and follow us, have a look, and see some of the projects that we've done.
I should jump into and say our showroom is by appointment only. So if you do want to actually come and experience the showroom, do reach out and we'll secure you an appointment and a tour.
Perfect. Lisa, I think we should book a tour in 2025. Maybe, when it's dead of winter for you and I here in Montana and Michigan, respectively. I think we should.
That'll be soon. We're ready. Love coming.
So, Greg, if you would bring us up to speed on where to find, follow, and engage with Chords, if you would, sir.
For all, I guess all international customers can visit chords.com. Australian customers can visit chords.com.au. We have obviously Chords on Instagram and Chords Australia on Instagram, and I'm speaking for both entities, and likewise with LinkedIn, we have both Chords and Chords Australia also.
Excellent. Excellent. And as we highlighted earlier, this project is one of the featured case studies on the chords.com website, but there are also other projects listed there, in addition to a host of educational articles and thought leadership as well, not only about connectivity and why those selection matters, but also just trends where the industry is going, and all sorts of other fascinating conversations. James Chen is Managing Director of Chords. For those of you who have met James over the years, you know that he has an incredible introspective and insight in the industry as well. So James is often authoring articles that are on chords.com as well as on the Chords LinkedIn as well. So make sure and follow not only the individuals, but the companies as well on LinkedIn and across the socials. Lisa, thank you for joining me for your first appearance on AV Trade Talk. I hope we haven't scared you in. You'll come back again.
I might.
Tell your friends. It's a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
No, I joke, but you have been covering this industry for so long. I really appreciated the time and the care that you took in telling the story, but also the
it was a good
energy.
one. It was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of it and helping to shape the story and the narrative about this. Definitely appreciate your input as well. For those of you on the listener side, if there is a topic that you would like to talk about on a future episode of AV Trade Talk, hit me up on the sphere and let me know. Let's have that conversation. I love hearing about what it took to get you here to where you are today, but also the stories of the industry I think are really important for all of us to discuss and celebrate, as it is not only the driving force behind what we do, but it also is an indicator of what's happening next and what we're going to be doing with technology down the road. So for those of you who are not familiar with Chords or Wired by MJD, I hope that this conversation provided you an excellent education, some inspiration, some takeaways as well. Thanks for taking a time out of your day to soak up this conversation. Once again, I'm Katie McGregor Bennett, your host of AV Trade Talk. We'll catch you again on another episode. Until then, take good care. Bye-bye.